1, 2, 3, 4.
I'm Mary Wiese, and I live at 506 East Jefferson in Washington. And then I'll start reading. Here's where I came from. I came to Washington November the 13th, 1905, at the age of 7. We lived at what is now 104 West Jefferson. That's the house down the alley here, the yellow. Across the street was a large elevator run by Mr. Eli Heifel. There were large pens where farmers brought their livestock to be shipped next morning by train. There were also large coal sheds there where people come and buy coal. Also a barn where people could feed and water their horses while they were in town, so they didn't have to tie them up. The city jail was a small wooden building where many times the people got pretty noisy. There also was a large livery barn on this ground where you could rent a horse and buggy for a trip in the country, and we did that quite often. The street had no concrete, so it got very muddy in the spring when it rained. The fire department had a tank on wheels, and it had to be pulled by men. It was just like a cart. There were several churches here. The English Lutheran on the corner of Walnut and North Elm. May Smith lives on that corner. That's where the church was before they built the one down there. The Presbyterian, where it is now. The Methodist, where it is now. And the Evangelical on Walnut, where it is now. I think they've kind of combined, but they were separate churches. The German Lutheran, where the post office is now, and a Baptist on East Catherine. Now, I don't know what other name that had, but I know it was there, but it got moved somewhere. The original Catholic Church was where the Catholic school is now. Where the Standard Station is now was the Danforth Hotel. This was a large building where many big events were held. There were several taverns, one of which was operated by my stepfather, Adam Krause. They had their usual good and bad times. Miss Mary Idlin lived where the library now stands. Her house now stands on Wood Street. I don't know exactly where, but it was moved down there. It's on Wood Street somewhere. She taught my husband in the first grade and all our 5 sons. Our son John in her 60th year. That was the last year she taught school. And one of his uncles was in her 35th year. She told us that once. She was very strict, and she washed out one of our son's mouth with soap. He had a birthday and brought candy bars for a treat. When they were leaving the school, one of his friends asked him for another, and he said some swear words, and so the soap. She was a perfect teacher. And I tell you, whoever that boy was that asked for the extra candy bar was a good friend of my Richard, and it was Sonny Bozak. He's the one that asked for the second candy bar when he didn't get it. And Sonny would have got soap. The big event of the year was the Jesse Colton tent show. It was in a tent on the Shown pasture on North Main Street. Well, that's down on the corner where I don't know what's on there. It's on the right on the south side of the street. What's all in that building there? But that was a big pasture, and that's where the show used to be. They had a show each night and a different performance. They stayed all week. All the new additions now were just farmland. We had 2 farm ladies who made cottage cheese and delivered it to us each week. No one makes it like they did. Now they were Mrs. Hartman and Herb Kyle's mother. They made it and they brought it, and boy was it ever good. Our wonderful fire department covers the ground where the jail and the livery barn were. The high school and grades 2 through 8 were in one large 2-story building on South Spruce. The high school was the south half of the building, upstairs. That was the only building that they had there at the time. And when I enrolled here, I was supposed to go in the 2nd grade, but the teacher didn't have room, so they put me in the 3rd grade. And that was Fanny Watson.
Uh-huh.
And they told me if I made it, I could go on from the 3rd grade and go on into the 4th. But I stayed in the 3rd grade 2 years. I didn't make it. By the time we got to the 8th grade, a new building was built. I don't know, is that building still up there behind
It's torn down.
did they tear that down? Well, that turned out to be the high school.
Yeah.
That's where I went the first year to high school. I had only one year of high school because my stepfather said girls didn't need as much schooling. A friend, Mrs. Dave Kelso, had 21 cherry trees, and each year she had people buy a tree and pick the ripe cherries. That's the way she got rid of it. And that was out in the southeast corner of town. That's all built up now too. The school gym in 1st grade, what is now the professional building. And that's where the high school used to play basketball, and we could go in there and play when it was rainy. And the TPNW and the CNA and the Santa Fe were very busy railroads for passenger and commercial service. My husband's father was a crossing watchman on North Main Street many years. That's the end of that. Did I skip one? I don't think I did. And wooden or brick sidewalks. Halloween was a busy time for pranksters to upset many important buildings. An older man who raised pigs gathered our garbage. He had a large wooden barrel on a cart pulled by a horse, and he came every day, so our places were always kept clean.
Oh.
He had a little cart made, and he had this great big wooden barrel on it. And he'd come and he'd dump all our stuff in that barrel, and then he'd haul it home to feed his pigs.
Oh.
And he lived down along the TPNW track on the west side. I don't know who's back in that place, but that's where he lived.
Oh, my goodness. Was that the end now?
I think that's all I had on all those sheets.
Well, it was very good, Mary.
Church. And we weren't allowed to go into any other church or any kind of a
Wedding or anything?
wedding or a funeral or anything.
Uh-huh.
But we sneaked in once in a while,
Yeah. Sure, like a...
especially when it was a relative.
Mary, did you work down at the Danforth home?
Oh, yeah, I must have missed that page
She
because
didn't tell about that, did
No.
she?
It's George Stimson, and I worked for, well, now I had a piece here about Allen Danforth. Did I miss that page?
I believe you did.
For the Mrs. Allen Danforth, that's where the funeral home was.
Yeah.
She had somebody else working there that was going to leave. And so Mrs. Stimson asked me if I wouldn't come and work with her until the other girl left. And then I went over there. And I was there 18 months.
At Mrs. Stimson's, you mean?
No, at Mrs.
At
Danforth, in that
okay.
big house.
Yeah.
And that was when he was sick in the hospital and they brought him home.
Oh.
And,
After you died?
no, he was
Oh, you
alive.
brought, okay.
He was alive.
Okay.
And they had another lady there as a cook.
Uh-huh.
And her name was Anna Blank. She came from Peoria. She was an old lady.
Uh-huh.
She did the cooking, and I did the cleaning up,
Uh-huh.
and she did the washing.
Uh-huh.
And Mrs. Danforth was a very generous woman.
Uh-huh.
But when they had something on the table that was left, it always disappeared before we got the dishes in the kitchen.
Oh,
And we knew they hadn't eaten it all.
what happened?
Why, she took it to her friends.
Oh,
She
sure.
carried it out to
Sure.
her friends.
Sure.
She had a friend that lived up in the corner on North Cedar, on South Cedar on the corner. I don't remember what that lady's name
Oh,
was.
I should know her name. It was Mary something. Where John Williams lives now?
Yes.
Yeah, Mary, yeah, she was a Presbyterian, I
Yeah,
think.
and Mrs.
So
Danforth was
Mrs.
too.
Danforth was, yeah, and this lady was alone and yes, a maiden lady.
And she used to take all the eats up there.
Yeah.
Well, this one time.
Mary Fraser.
Yeah. One time we had a turkey. And when we came to clean off the table, the platter, we knew they didn't eat all the turkey.
Why, yeah.
It was gone. And so the cook said, I wonder what she done with it this time. Well, anyhow, we finally found it when it began to smell in the dining room.
Oh, really?
She had such a great big, what they all call a sideboard in there.
Yeah,
And this one door down below
yeah.
didn't have a handle on to open it.
Uh-huh.
And she shoved it in there and pushed the door shut.
You forgot about it, I guess.
She forgot all about it.
So you people in the kitchen never got any of the goodies to eat?
Sometimes we got something, so the cook would make something for us
Yeah.
to eat, but
Yeah.
that's the way she was. She took it to her friends,
Yeah.
whatever it was.
Yeah.
And she used to weave a lot of baskets,
Oh, yeah.
and she got to be a real nuisance.
Did she?
Probably shouldn't say it, but she sure did.
Yeah.
She'd sit, each room in that big house had a fireplace, a
Yeah.
marble fireplace.
Yeah.
And she'd go with her raffia, and she'd sit there, and she'd weave and weave.
Uh-huh.
And then she'd tell me, well, now this room is ready for you, you can clean it up now.
Uh-huh.
I'm done here.
Uh-huh.
By the time I got done with that, she was over in another room and had that all
Making
mixed
the
up.
same mess.
Making the same.
Uh-huh.
And she was quite a character.
Yeah. But didn't she have a buzzer at the dining room table, and call to buzz someone from the kitchen to come?
I don't remember that.
Well, somebody told me that had
And
been
she
there as
probably
a
did.
child. Yeah.
But she had a daughter, Helen,
Yeah.
that was married and lived in Washington State. And she
Yeah.
used to come here to visit every
I
summer.
remember. Well, she had a son, Almond, didn't she? Named
Yeah,
after the grandfather,
yeah,
Almond G.
and
I remember him. He went up here to high school for a while.
he was a little bitty fellow when I worked there. And he come out in the kitchen one day and he says to me, he says, "You're poor, aren't you?"
Oh.
And I said, "Well, what makes you say that?" Well, he said, "The kind of clothes you wear."
Oh.
got so mad at him, but I didn't
He
get
was
touch
a,
him.
he was a.
Oh, he was a
He was a
hungry.
demon in school. He was a red-haired, freckled-faced meanie. Oh, he was hungry.
He was hungry.
He really was.
And he got by with it.
Yeah.
His mother wasn't around there to,
No. Well, he didn't get by with it in school. He was always being called into the office.
I used to babysit sometimes when I worked there for AC Danforth
Yeah,
girls
yeah,
when they were little.
yeah. Well, they weren't hard to take care of.
Oh, no.
No, they were nice little girls.
But I had quit working there at the old folks when the girl daughter died.
Yeah. Doris,
Yeah.
Doris.
Then I went back to Mrs. Stimson again for a while. And then finally, I landed over in Peoria at one of my stepfather's cousins.
Oh, did you?
And, well, I was 19 years old then. And I was there 1 week. And she had me to clean house. It was in December.
Oh.
She wanted to get everything ready for Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I even pounded rugs out in the yard.
Oh.
You know, she took up her rugs and hung them out, and we had snow on the ground. And I had to beat them rugs. I stayed 1 week,
I don't blame you.
and I didn't feel good.
Yeah.
And I went home, and the next morning, well, it was funny. I guess I had started to break out already on my face. And I had been doing a lot of traveling back and forth on the train.
Yeah.
And I'd go over Peoria shopping, you know, and come
Uh-huh.
back. And this one time, that time I came back over, the conductor, he says, well, I had my suitcase, you know. He says, well, do you think you've got it all this time? And I said, yes, I guess I have. I got home the next day, I found out that I had gotten the chicken pox.
Oh.
That woman's kids had the chicken pox.
Oh.
And I cleaned house and I got the chicken pox. I was 19 years old.
And out in that cold, beating those carpets.
It's a wonder I didn't die.
It's a wonder.
I survived.
Yeah.
I'm still here.
Yeah. Well, you've survived a lot of things.
But no, I spend a lot of my time in the summers out helping out in the country.
Yeah, harvest time.
Yeah, because I had all my relatives when they were in the
Yeah.
country.
Yeah.
And, so,
Yeah, I think that's interesting about the wooden sidewalks, you know, because I remember when we had wooden sidewalks.
yeah, we did
And a
one.
dirt road,
Yeah.
dusty, dirty road.
And down there where the city building is now, that was a pasture.
Yeah, I know.
And there was a great big two-story house there, and the Cable family lived in there.
Oh,
And that man used to deliver oil to different places,
Uh-huh.
you know.
uh-huh.
And he had his great big tank truck, and sometimes he had to put 4 horses on in order to pull through in the spring when it got so muddy he couldn't get out.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
But I used to play down in that pasture
Yeah.
a lot too.
They kept horses down there.
Yeah,
I remember when my girls had one of Iona Hiles ponies for the summer. Well, we rented that pasture down there and keep it in.
Would you like to talk a little bit about the American Legion Auxiliary?
well, when we got married, Henry, we got married the 4th of May in 1918. And he left for the Army on June the 28th.
Yes, sir?
We had already knew he had to go,
Yeah.
and he thought we ought to get married before he left.
Uh-huh.
And so we got married, and we lived in Peoria for a couple of weeks.
Did you?
Then we came over to his folks, and
Uh-huh.
that's the house next door, the
Yeah.
mountains down here.
Yeah.
And then he left on the 28th of June,
Yes, sir?
and he came home the next year on the 3rd of June.
Yeah.
He never got a furlough, And everywhere they went, they had to walk. They didn't get no rides like they do now. They had to walk.
Well, when he came home, you had a fine baby boy for him, didn't you?
Oh, yes, Richard was born the 7th of February.
Yeah.
He was about 4 months old
Uh-huh.
when Henry first seen
Uh-huh.
him. And I always said I hated red hair. And then my first child had as brighter red hair as you could get. Of course, his grandpa still didn't have red hair.
That's where it came.
So,
Yeah.
what is it? He's 66 years old now,
Think of that.
Richard is.
Well, you're a gold star mother.
No,
Oh, you're just a,
I'm just one of the regular members.
okay,
I'm not a charter member.
aren't you?
No, they organized in 1924,
Uh-huh.
and your mother was the first president.
Yeah.
But Henry wouldn't let me join.
Oh,
Said I had to stay home and watch the kids. Couldn't run around.
I know, there are men like that.
So I'd stay home.
Yeah. Well, that was pretty early. I mean, that was in the days when they did. Mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when it got around to 1928, Frances Brooks lived across the street
Yeah.
from me with her mother, Mrs.
Yeah.
Fish. And she kept always telling me, Mary, why don't you join the auxiliary? Because she
Uh-huh.
was a charter member.
Uh-huh.
And Anna Holland is the only charter member that's left living.
Is that right?
She's the only one.
Yes, sir.
Well, anyhow, I just finally made up my mind I was going to join.
Good for you.
Mrs. Tanton had tried to
Yeah.
talk me into it, and so did your mother, and
Yeah.
so I finally decided I joined in 1928. I've been a member ever since.
Yeah.
I've been president of it 3 times.
Yeah.
I've had the county president. I've been the district director. They had directors at that time.
Uh-huh.
Made one trip to Dallas to a national convention.
Oh, that's right.
And I kept up my dues ever since.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm not as active though as I used to be
Well,
because
no.
just can't do it anymore.
No, let the younger ones take over.
But I'm still interested in it.
Sure you are, I know you are. Do you remember that when my mother was president,
Yeah.
do you remember she had the gavel made from
Yeah.
a tree out south of town where she was born?
I remember that.
And she is so sentimental like that, and she had some man who, do you know who it is? A man in town who could go out there and get a chunk of that tree and made the gavel, that wooden gavel, for the American Legion. I
Yeah.
wonder if you're still using it. Do you still have it?
I don't think so.
I wonder what became of it.
I have no idea.
I just love to have it.
If I could ever locate it, I'll
Yeah.
sure see that you get it.
Yeah, I'd like, because I have a newspaper clipping at home, written
Yeah.
up about what she did.
Oh, she was wonderful.
Yeah. Why, maybe you can tell me, somebody asked me, up there in your neck of the woods, which house is it that has the historical sign on it? G, they said, is it the Giesen house with 1871 on it? It's up there on East Jefferson. Or is it the old fish house?
I think it's the old fish house where Rollo Perry lives.
Oh.
They had a sign in the front
Did
yard
they?
one time, yeah. But I don't see it anymore. I don't know what happened to it.
Well,
But
then
I saw that out there in the yard once.
well, this is just lately.
But the Giesen house is in the next corner east.
Yeah,
They got a big hedge around there, it's like I have.
At one time, they had a sign, hang that historical sign, from the bicentennial,
Yeah.
they had that hanging
That's
there
what,
on a post. I don't know if it's still there or not.
well, that's what, who told me? Laverne Blumenshine, she lives right up there on Spruce. She said, oh, she just loves to see that sign, loves to look at that sign down there. And she thought that it was hanging above someplace. Well, I've got to get in the car and go down and see it myself.
Well, they got such a high hedge around there, you can't see nothing unless you're inside the yard.
Oh,
They got for rent signs stuck in the hedge.
oh, do they? Huh?
And there's somebody living in there, I think, the Mrs. Moss's mother owned that house and she died.
Oh.
And then, of course, they shipped her out to Iowa.
Uh-huh.
And I don't really know who lives in there. The hedge is so high you can't see nothing.
Oh. Huh.
But they did have a sign one time in the front yard there where Rollo Perry lives, across the street from me.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think he usually puts it up in the summertime. He takes it in during the winter.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, so, stays
Yeah.
nice.
Right.
Would you like to talk about your family?
Well, I don't know what to say.
You had 5 boys.
I had 5 boys. One of them's gone, Raymond.
Mhm.
He was the second oldest.
Mhm.
And then Pete lives up there by the gas station.
Mhm.
And Robert, he married Sally Miner.
Mhm.
And John, well, I haven't seen him for quite a long time, but we just had word that, well, he'd been in California, and he'd been living in Missouri, and he just ran out of work. He isn't too well anyhow, and so he went to California. And then I found out yesterday that his wife followed him out there. And of course, I've been helping him out,
Oh.
and so the last time he called, he'd like to have some money, so I sent him some. And I don't know what he used it for, whether he had her come out there, but they're getting so they won't tell me nothing, and it makes me kind of mad, because I think if I'm going to help out somebody, I should know some of the particulars.
Well, yes, I don't blame you. See, know what's going on.
So the other day I found out that his wife had went out there to be with him and take some treatments. She had cancer of the stomach and she died
She did.
out there. Now she was Charlie's stepmother.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
Charlie's
Yeah.
stepmother.
yeah.
And they knew it over at Sally's, but they didn't tell me anything about it.
Oh,
And it gets me a little disgusted.
yeah.
I think when they're going to depend on me for something, I think I ought to let them know some of the particulars.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether they've gotten her back here or not, but they said that they had to embalm her out there, and I guess they were going to have to do it over again when they got here to Illinois. I don't know what kind of
Well, this is
news.
just recent news.
Just now, this last day, a couple of days.
my.
So I don't know whether she's been buried in Quincy yet or not. But now Charlie knew some of this stuff and he wouldn't tell me.
They don't want to worry you, I guess.
That's what they say, they don't want to worry.
Why should you worry about it?
Well, good gosh, I'm 87 years old. I can think
I
of
know, that's the way I feel. Crime in that way. I can take anything.
But, so I don't know now whether they brought her back and buried her there or not.
That's
But
too bad. It is.
and I said something to Charlie about it. Of course, he's been helping out some guy that does some carnival work. And he came home yesterday, and I said, did you know about this, that Pat died out there? He said, yeah. He says, Dad called up one day here and he told me about it. And I said, why in the heck didn't you tell me about it?
Yeah.
Well, he knew I didn't like her. I think that's the whole reason.
Yeah.
But the reason for it was when John married her, she had his daughter from another marriage. And she didn't like Charlie. And so she treated him so ugly, so we had to take him in.
Yeah.
And now that put me against her in the
Yeah.
first place.
Yeah.
Because John put up with it. I didn't
Yeah.
believe in that either.
Yeah. Right.
So anyhow, I got real upset. Now, I don't know whether they brought her back, but I finally got out of Charlie yesterday that Pat had, I don't know if her mother and father are both living or not yet, but one of them is, and they live in Quincy. So that's where they were going to bring her to bury her.
But John wouldn't be coming back too.
Yes, he's supposed to be coming back now.
Oh.
So I don't know where he's coming to, whether he's going to land down there in Quincy somewhere.
Or he might land on your doorstep.
And probably
Shucks.
since 1920. Moved there on my birthday in 1920.
Oh, darn. Yeah.
Yeah, been there a long time. And it's like a wilderness now.
Yeah.
The family that lived across the street from me there in the house that Ernie Perry built once in between Mrs. Fish and the Rollos. Mr. Thomas was his name. He used to sit on his, out there on his stoop, and he'd say, I sure like to look over there. He says, that just looks like a park. Because we had some trees in there, and we had a lot of flowers blooming, all the time.
Yeah.
And now it's getting to be a wilderness. And when we first moved there, I wanted to plant some stuff there. And the men folks informed me that if I put any more stuff in the yard, I'd have to mow the lawn.
Oh,
I wasn't going to mow around all that stuff.
yeah,
So I quit planting.
yeah.
Then finally they started planting trees again. And right now it's going to be a forest if it keeps up big enough.
Well, Henry was like to raise vegetables and flowers. I can remember his sunflowers down out there.
Yeah.
And he gave me a start of sunflowers one time, and they didn't grow. Hollyhocks too. I remember there were a clump of hollyhocks down there. He gave me some hollyhocks, but I couldn't raise them.
I don't know. But right now, the rabbits kind of decided that they ought to make my place a stopping place.
Oh, sure.
So we raise a whole lot of sets of rabbits every year.
Yeah.
Now I got 2 little ones running
Oh, everybody has little rabbits running.
The one big one I got killed out on the street about a week ago. So I don't know what happened to it, but it got killed. But them 2 little ones are there. They've got Bob all upset. He's got wire, 2 kinds of wire over them flowers. 3 times first the birds picked them off, and then the rabbits come along and chewed them off.
Yeah.
This time he's got a heavier wire around there. I think maybe they'll let them bloom for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
But we've got all kinds of stuff. We got peaches and plums, and we got cherries. We got 2 apple trees, and I finally got an oak tree.
Oh, boy.
I wanted an oak tree in the yard, and Henry told me I couldn't have an oak tree because they make too much fuss
Oh.
when the acorns fall. He didn't want that. So Bernard Engel come along. He lives down in the country here. Maybe you know him.
Works for Silco.
Yeah,
I know him.
Bernard Engel. He has a lot of trees down there. And he come along, and of course I knew him when he was a little kid at home here. And he said, I got some oak trees down there that don't have any acorns on. They never get acorns on. So Henry told him, well, you can bring her one then. So we planted it. And then it's an immense big tree right now. But it never had an acorn on until the year after Henry died. And then it got acorns.
Isn't that strange?
It don't have some every year, but they're real tiny little ones. But it gets acorns on it. And it's an immense big tied tree.
Oh.
I told Bob one day, I said, if you get tired, and of course, he owns the place now. I gave it to him.
Oh. Well, he
And,
takes good care. He
yeah.
helps you so much.
So I told him, I said, if you don't like that oak tree, I said, chop it down.
Yeah.
I said, I just don't care anymore.
Yeah.
But he says, no, we're going to leave it for a while yet.
Yeah. But isn't that funny that it waited until Henry was gone?
It waited and he was gone until it had some acorns on it, little ones.
Isn't that funny?
Wasn't very many there, but they were there.
Yeah.
No, I gave Bob that place, I think 2 years ago.
Oh, that's nice.
I tell you, it just kind of worried me. And he's been doing things for me all these years.
I know it. I know
Before
it.
he ever got married.
I know it. And he's still carrying on.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I turned it over to him,
Good.
and it's in his name.
Good.
And I told him that I'll pay the taxes whenever they come due.
Yeah.
And I said, any improvements that need to be done, I'll
You'll
pay
do
for
it.
it. Whenever
Sure.
you want to fix something.
Sure.
And I said, I'll pay all my own utilities.
Yeah. Sure.
And so I do that.
That's great.
Well, then I got in trouble with Pete and Helen.
Oh, well, no matter what you have done.
This place down here, my mother had said she wanted to give that to Bob because he done for her just what he's doing for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
He never missed a day or twice a day
Yeah.
to go and do things for her.
Yeah.
And she depended on him.
Yeah.
And she told me once over a year or so before she died, she said, I want you to get some papers made out and give this place to Bob because I want him to have it.
Uh-huh.
Well, Bob said, Mom, I don't want you to do that. He said, the other boys will be jealous. He said, they're married and they got other things to do. And he said, I'm single and I can do it. And he says, and I want to do it. So I waited until she died. And I got it all in my name.
Mm-hmm.
And then I turned it over to him. I gave it to him. So
Good.
it's his place.
Yeah. So he has some nice real estate.
He's got both houses.
Yeah.
So anyhow, he'd like to sell this one down here, but houses don't sell now.
No, I know it.
But they made it into like a 2 apartment.
I know it. I was down there. Yeah. Was down
And,
here. Oh,
he's had 2 people that have lived in there that run out on him and didn't pay the rent
Yeah.
and moved out.
Yeah.
But he's got Bill Baylor living upstairs
Oh, yeah.
now to keep somebody in the place.
Yeah.
Of course, Bill has to pay his own utilities.
Yeah.
It's set so that the top and the bottom are separate.
Yeah. That's good.
And, but then we know there's somebody in there.
True.
But then Pete and Helen got mad at me and they said, what are you gonna do with the farm you got? You gonna give that to Bob too? And I got 80 acres of it around Pontiac. And I said, no, I'm not gonna sell that. I said, I'm gonna leave that till I die and then they can sell it to pay my expenses.
Do with it what they want.
Yeah. But of course, after my stepfather died and Mom got everything, and my brother was gone, then I inherited all of that. So I've got plenty to take care of.
Sure you do.
Don't have to worry at all.
No.
I get Social Security
Yeah.
and I get,
Town that you remember. Mayors. Early.
oh,
Rusty Roberts.
yes, he was one of them. He lived up on Walnut Street.
He lived on Walnut Street, and he was mayor when the war, First World War ended, and we had a big root to toot uptown.
Yeah.
Remember that? Everybody came out, and I started crawling up the water tower. I was with a gang, and I started crawling up the water tower, and I don't know if I've ever gotten up there, but in the meantime, Rusty Roberts came run. Somebody told him, it was around noon, and told him, and he came running down from his home downtown there to the water tower. You get off of there up there! You come down from up there! That was Rusty Roberts.
That's the time I caught the flu when that war ended. They had that big get-up uptown.
Yeah!
I worked for Mrs. Lou Danforth
Yeah.
out on South Main
I
Street.
know her.
And I came uptown to that celebration
Uh-huh.
in November. And I got sick, I caught the flu.
Oh.
So I had to quit work and I come home. And
Yeah.
I was in bed for quite a long time. They were scared to death I was going to die.
Yeah.
But I made it. I'm still here.
Yeah. November 11th, 1918. Oh,
Yeah.
sure.
That was a big day here in town,
Oh, it was.
but it was a cold, nasty day.
Yeah. Well, who were some other mayors? Do you remember? Was Dan Chaffer on South Main? I don't believe he was ever mayor.
I don't know whether
But he was an
or
old
not.
prominent.
Yeah, he lived
family.
next door to the Danforths.
Yeah, right back.
The next house.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they had dances at that city hall.
Oh yeah, they used to have dances there all the time.
Yeah, had dances there. And at plays, you know, they put on plays.
We had plays up above where the building and loan is, you know.
Yeah.
We had plays upstairs there too.
Over the bank. That was
Yeah.
Danforth Bank then.
Because I know I took part in one of them one time. I don't think I even knew what I was doing. They had us. Well, we had some streamers, and we had to march around, and we had to twist things.
Oh, yeah.
Together, you know.
Like a maypole?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. A maypole.
And they had different lodges here, but you know you couldn't belong to some of them. Being I was a Catholic at that time,
Oh.
we couldn't join some of that
No.
stuff. You know,
Uh-uh.
we weren't allowed to.
Uh-uh.
You know, we weren't even allowed to go into another church
Yeah.
to a funeral.
That has changed quite a bit.
Yeah.
They were that strict at that time.
Mhm.
But we did sneak in a couple of times. One of my aunts, Mrs. Schmidt, Sonora Finger's mother,
Mhm.
she got kind of huffy about it one time. She says, they ain't going to tell me I can't go to a funeral of one of my relatives in another church.
Yeah.
She says, I'm going.
Yeah.
So she went. Because I had relatives on
Yeah.
both sides. They were German.
Yeah. Well, did you get to go to the band concerts that they had every Wednesday night?
Yeah, now where is that piece? Didn't I
Did
read
you
that?
say that?
No.
Well, where is it? It's there.
Yeah, where we got our
Over
water.
there.
The water.
Mom said everybody drank out of the same cup.
Tin cup.
I had that written down somewhere,
Yeah.
but we had to be home by 9:30. And she gave us each a dime. And we had our choice of how we wanted to spend that dime.
Sure.
We either could buy a sack of popcorn or we could buy an ice cream cone.
Yeah.
We had to decide which we wanted the best.
Yeah.
We got 10 cents. We had to be home by 9:30.
Before it was over.
Yeah,
It wasn't over till 10 o'clock. That would have made me, I didn't have to come home till 10 o'clock.
I can't understand that. I had that written down. They are buried on the spot where the bandstand used to be.
Oh, really?
Yes, that was an open space. And where the shed is now that they keep their tools in, where you go up, it was on the left-hand side, almost up to the edge.
Is that right?
And there was a corner, that corner was mostly set off for Catholic people,
Oh.
buried their people there.
Oh.
And there was an open space there, and they had a bandstand there.
Mhm.
And after the decoration day, they'd go out there and they'd have a band concert
You
on.
know, I don't remember that.
Yes, I remember that when I first came here.
I remember way in the back end, you know, they had picnic tables.
Oh, I was out there then. Yeah, I remember that.
But this was on this road, on this side, where you go south from their work shed.
Uh-huh.
It was way down up in that end, because Annie's folks are buried over in that corner.
I'll be darned.
And that was a corner where they also buried some people that didn't have really a place to go, or just a hit or miss grave, you know.
Yeah.
And of course, they had a lot of them along the road there where you first come in the cemetery. That
Yeah.
gate is usually shut now.
Yeah.
They're outside,
Yeah.
really on the outside of the road.
Yeah.
But Yeah, we used to go to band concerts out there.
And I never knew there was a bandstand out there till
Yeah,
Ada
there was-
mentioned once
there was one out
she
there.
went to a band concert out there.
Yeah, there was one out there.
Huh. Yeah, I just remember they had, the city park, they called it the city park.